Hello, my name is Joel, this is Rebecca, and together we work as Rosebriar Creek, an acoustic duo. You can feel free to look us up on the web and like our page, that would be wonderful. This is beginner lesson number 3. We're going to do a little bit of a review to start it out. Goal is to develop both my right hand and my left hand independently. More importantly, I need to develop a good concept using my brain as to what exactly it is I'm trying to accomplish with the instrument. With the right hand, we've talked about free strokes and rest strokes. Rest strokes happen whenever I take my pick, my thumb is going along the axis of the string straight across, and I simply drop my thumb, push it down so that it lands on the string below. The lowest string is E, it will land on the A string directly below it. A free stroke happens when we go up or down and up. So I'm circling the string. Now what we're doing is we're counting out measures of 4/4. By counting, I have a reference for how long I'm going to hold the sound. If I hold the sound for 4 toe taps, or 4 beats, I have what's known as a whole note. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. Just gently let your thumb push it down. 3, 4. If I cut that in half, it's a half note. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sounds that go for every footfall are known as quarters. Eighth notes split the measure up into 8 parts. In order to do that, I need to use my free stroke for the first time. My foot goes down, my foot must come up. My hand goes down, my hand comes back up. We want to put them in sync. So if you'll get your foot tapping, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. 1, 2, 3, 4. To count them, put the word and in between every sound. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Notice how what goes down must come up. Try and get those in sync. Now, we're going to go through our strings. As a reminder, the lowest was E. Our next string is A, and we're going to go quarters and eighth notes. A full measure of each. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now think to yourself, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Back to quarters. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and next string is D. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Next string is G. And next string is going to be our B string. And finally the high E. Careful not to drop it too far. Now, I'm going to combine those quarter notes with the eighth notes using one string at first. I'm going to go to my low E. That way I can feel the rest stroke as opposed to the free stroke. Now, I don't have to play a steady stream of any one of these. I can mix and match my rhythms as I see fit. If I want to, I can simply think of a measure, filling up a measure, by the 4 beats that I'm counting, and I have 2 methods of figuring out exactly how to make a more interesting rhythm. I can think down up as to what's actually happening with my hand, and or I can think the number and the word and whenever I want to use an 8th note. So for instance, if I wanted to put the 8th notes on the first number or the first beat, I would say 1 and 2, 3, 4. Notice how my foot is keeping itself steady. So it's down, 1 and 2, 3, 4. If I put it on the number 2 beat, I would get 1, 2, and 3, 4. If I put it on 3, I would get 1, 2, 3, and 4. Etc., etc. If I wanted to put it on more than 1 beat, for instance, let's say we did 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Now, anytime I say and, I could just swap out the word up. So in other words, that last one, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, could be interpreted as down, up, down, down, up, down. So 1 and 2, 3 and 4, or up, down, down, up, down. If I put it on 2 and 3, I'd have 1, 2 and 3 and 4. Or 1, 2 and 3 and 4, or down, down, up, down. Now to make it more interesting, let's go to our 2-finger shape on what we call the E minor chord. First finger, index finger on the A string, 2nd fret. Middle finger, 2nd finger on the string directly below it, also in the 2nd fret. Now, I can hit all of the notes with this particular chord. This is known as an E minor. Now, the same concept applies to full chords. So if I wanted to hear 1 and 2, 3, 4, if I wanted to hear 1, 2, and 3, 4, we talked about the beauty of these shapes is that I can simply move them in 2 directions. Vertically is up and down in the set of strings. If I drop the same fingers down 1 set of strings onto the D and the G string, I get this A9 chord. When it comes to changing chords, we usually change them every measure. So here is our E. And here is our A9. Make sure your fingers can go from back and forth on these 2 places. Very nice. Now I'm going to use whole notes first till I get the feel of it. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. Notice how I'm dropping my wrist. So I'm straight across when I start, and then I drop my wrist straight down. So my thumb starts at that angle and then falls to the floor. 2, 3, 4. Half notes would fill up the measure. And quarters would take 4 of them to fill up the measure. Eighth notes would take 8. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and letting the wrist do most of the work, not the arm. Now, the same thing we did with the single string can be done with a full chord. Of course, I can't really do a free stroke, or can I? What would it sound like if I just did 2 strings? I'm on my lowest 2 strings. Notice how I landed on the D string to get that sound. Now I landed on the G string to get that sound. Now I landed on the B to get that sound, and there are all of them. It is worth your time to see if you can't learn to stop at different places with different numbers of strings. And now let's apply the concept, and we're going to hit all 6 strings here. And it'll feel as if there isn't a rest stroke, although going to the bottom, it truly is a rest stroke. So here we are, 1, let's use it on the 1. So it's 1 and 2, 3, 4, or down, up, down, down, down. Switch, down, up, down, down, down. If I put it on 2, I'd get 1, 2, and 3, 4. Or I could say, if I put it on 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, Now before we tried to learn how to rest stroke and control the number of strings that we used. And that's a good exercise for this right hand to get comfortable with. Now, I am going to use my left hand to create chords, but I'm going to make it simple at first. We are going to learn 2 chords, but we have to learn how to control the right hand. I am only going to use the top 3 strings, meaning the highest strings. That would be my G, my B, and my E. Those 3 strings have 3 different sounds in them, 3 notes. And that is exactly what a chord is. It contains at least 3 different pitches. The easiest chord to hit is the E minor chord itself. Notice that if I was to play the 2-finger pattern here, or the 2-finger shape, that if I hit the top 3 only, it's still, they're not pressed down. I'm not fretting them, so therefore I get the same sound. We are going to try another chord today, 2 of them. The first one is C, and I'm going to put my first finger on the B string, 1st fret. 1 finger per fret, we've talked about that. This is a C chord, a complete, and a full C chord. If I take that same string, and I'm going to get a little closer so you can see, I'm on the 2nd string, and I'm trying to leave enough space so I can hit the open strings on either side. That is a C. It contains the G, the C, and the E, 3 different pitches. Now if I simply drop that finger down 1, I get what's known as a G7. So you might want to practice going back and forth from this to this until it's comfortable. You must get right on the tip of your finger in order to make all of the strings, all of the 3 strings sound nicely. Now, I am going to let Rebecca play the full chord. So those of you who do know how to play these chords can join in, but this is going to be a brain concept. When I think of chords, I do not think of them as letter names. I think of their relationship to one another. Two consecutive letter names are very close in relationship to each other. This sound, C and G, are exactly 5 letters up. C, D, E, F, G. I'm going to start using a nomenclature. I'm going to start calling these chords by what their function is. The function of the C, because it's the first sound I hear, is going to be my 1 chord. C, D, E, F, G is 5 places higher, so this is going to become my 5 chord. This is the sound of a 1 to a 5. And this particular sound is the sound of Western music. Rebecca is going to use the full chord. Now, we have to learn another word, and that word is phrase. Every line that we sing is a phrase of music. Now, there's a magic number, if you will. Our ears are accustomed to hearing sets of 4 measures for phrases. And at this juncture, that's going to serve you very well. So if I want to create something, let's say I wanted to write a song on my own, I might take this C chord and play it for 4 times in a row. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to switch it over to the G. 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. If I ended right there, to our ear, our brain would say something's not done. It's not finished. In order to finish it up, I must bring it back to the sound that we start on, which in this case is the 1 or the tonic note. Now, there are several patterns that are very useful to know. The first one I'm going to call your basic country pattern. And it divides each phrase up this way. The very first phrase might contain 2 measures of the 1 and then 2 measures of the 5. Now notice I'm left out there hanging with that 5, so my brain wants to hear me come back to the 1. Now if I do 2, it's symmetrical with the first phrase, but here is the gist. When I get to the 5 the second time, I'm only going to hit it once and then bring it back home. So I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 on the C, then 2 on the G, 2, 3, 4, and that's the first phrase. Then I'm back, 2, 3, 4, 2 on that C. Here comes our 1, and we're back to 2, 3, 4. A great number of songs use that particular pattern. Children's songs in particular would use that particular pattern, and here's an example. If I'm going to play, I could think of a simple song like this. 2, 3, 4. 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indians, 4 little, 5 little, 6 little Indians, 7 little, 8 little, 9 little Indians, 10 little Indian boys. Notice on the word boys, that final word in the phrase, I had to return to the home sound, the tonic, also called the 1. Now another pattern that comes up quite often is known as the mirror. And with this particular pattern, I start at the home sound, and then I go to the 5 sound, the G7 sound. Now the second phrase remains on the G5, on the G7, excuse me, and then comes right back on the second part of the phrase. So I end up with something along these lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 2, nice and symmetrical. Here comes the 5. And I do it twice. Now that's the end of the phrase, but I can't end there. My brain would say, no, not finished. I have to then continue, and a mirror pattern means that I'm going to start on the opposite end and then work my way back. So from the 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it returns home to bring it back to where we started. Now, song that might use this particular pattern might be something like Hank Williams' song Jambalaya. Goodbye, Joe, he gotta go, me, oh my, he gotta go, pull the P-road down by you. My Yvonne, sweetest one, me, oh my, so come, we'll have big fun on the bayou. And the entire song uses that pattern. It never changes throughout the entire song. I can mix up my rhythms. Let's do it with half notes. 1, 2. Goodbye, Joe. We gotta go. Me, oh my, oh. We gotta go. Pull P-road down the bayou. My Yvonne, sweetest one. Me, oh my, oh. Notice that last word is where the switch is. Son of a gun, we'll have big fun on the bayou. Now, to get into the chorus, I might want to add a little more rhythmically there, so let's go right into quarter notes at that point. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I feel it gumbo. Oh, now I'm gonna see my Chesney. Big guitar, feel fruit jar, me, oh my, oh. Some gun will have big fun on the bayou. Now I might go back to whole notes. Hey, Bordeaux, gonna know the place is buzzing, and etc., etc., etc. I can sing it. If you're going to learn a song, I highly recommend you start by playing the whole note itself. Learn to sing with a whole note rhythm. And that way, when you add extra rhythms, you'll still have the sense of the measure itself, and you'll know where the next one or the next measure begins. Now, mirrors are kind of interesting because I can give them any number and then do the same thing backwards. In this particular example, there was 2 measures of the C and then 2 measures of the G, adding up to 4. Well, if I do 3 measures of the C and 1 measure of the G, it'll add up to 4 too. Now, to make it a mirror, of course, I would stay on the 5 and I would repeat that process, but I'd go around the other side. It was mirror image of itself. So let's see if we can first count it out that way. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 3. Here it comes. Now, that means the ending of the phrase happened when I switched on the last measure of the 4th measure. Another way I can think of it is the last word of the phrase would come at that juncture. Now, the second phrase, the second line that I'm going to sing, is going to have 3 measures of the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 3, and comes right back. And that would finish the phrase. An example of a song that uses that might be Tom Dooley. And let's see. First words is hang down your head. So in this particular song, I'm going to start with the chord. Hang down your head, tum, dooley, hang down your head and cry. Notice the last word, cry, is where I did the switch. So I did 3 of the C and only 1 of the G. 3 of the 1 chord and only 1 of the 5 chord. Now to get back, I'm going to do the same thing in reverse, mirror image. So hang down your head, tum, dooley, oh boy, you're bound to die. Now that logic happens a lot. Let's take this song and work our way through it a bit more. To learn the song, use the whole note pattern first. In other words, count sets of 4 and just let that one set of 4 carry you through while you work out the words. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hang down your head, tum, dooley, hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, tum, dooley, oh boy, you're bound to die. I'm living on a mountain. I swore she'd be my wife, but the gal refused me, so I stabbed her with my knife. Now back to the chorus, I might want to switch my rhythm up only when you're sure you can sing it. So here, let's go right for quarters. So 3, 4. Hang down your head, tum, dooley, hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, tum, dooley, oh boy, you're bound to die. Now because I'm only playing 3 notes, and you're probably going to start that way as well, it's going to be hard to do the 8th notes. However, Rebecca can. And if you're playing with someone, it's a good idea that the 2 of you adopt a different pattern. If you're singing, you can do your whole note all the way through it and let whoever you're playing with give it a more interesting rhythmic pattern. So Rebecca's going to combine 8 notes in whatever way she wants to with this. And I'm going to stay here and work on my singing, so I'm going to concentrate on my whole note with these simple 3-string chords. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Hang down your head, tum, dooley, hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, tum, dooley, oh boy, you're bound to die. Etc., etc. This mirror pattern, we can go even further. We're using sets of 4, aren't we? What if I did 6 of the 1 chord, or the C chord in this case? I still want to get a nice even number of 4s. Well, 8 is 2 4s, so if I was to do 6 measures of the 1, I would need to go to 2 measures of the 5 in order to fill it out so that my brain responds to it and says, oh yeah, that's where it goes. The mirror pattern, starting on the 5 and coming home, would have to do the same thing. 6 of the G and then 2 of the 1. Now a song that might do that could be Okie from Muskogee. There's a good example of a song that would use a mirrored pattern with 6 and 2, adding up to 8 for the full phrase. So here is our 1. And let's see, you have to find your note, and we're going to talk about that as we get better at this. But I'm proud to be an Okie from Muskogee is the first lines. I'm proud to be an Okie from Muskogee. Notice I have all 4 there. A place where even squares can have a ball. Can you feel it? They still raise Old Glory down at the courthouse, while lightning's still the biggest thrill There's an example of a mirror using 6 and 2, adding up to 8 instead of 4 alone. Now, a 1 to 5 pattern is one of the most important chord progressions in Western music. So what I'm going to do is give you a couple of examples of songs that use it, entire songs that use it. And I'd like to see if you can be creative at home and figure out a way to make these songs happen using your own noggin, using your own brain. Examples of the songs that might use this sound. 6 and 1 could be Blow the Man Down. Buffalo Gals might be a song to try. Oh My Darling Clementine. The chorus to Down by the Riverside. Down in the Valley So Low. Great 1 to 5 progression. You might try a song like Go Tell It on the Mountain. Or even a song like The Streets of Laredo. Or Skip to My Lou. These are all examples of songs that would work with those two sounds. And a quick review of that, I take my B string, the second string up from the bottom, also known as the second string, and I put my first finger there, and I hit only the top 3 strings. That's my 1 sound. So let's say I was going to try to figure out, I don't know, Rockabye Baby, right? There's another example. Rockabye Baby on the tree. Can you hear it? Right there is when I go top, and I'd hold it. When the bough breaks, the cradle will. And can you hear it right at the end of that line? I come right back to it. When the da 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 da, and down will come baby, cradle and all. Allow yourself to feel the song. Sing it with the chord that you're playing. And you can begin developing your ear and your brain to hear how the music works. I wish you a lot of luck with that and have fun. Thank you, Rebecca.